Hey Defenders, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how we can leverage Velociraptor to give us Sigma rule detection within our open source SIEM solution. So stick around and we'll jump into it. A common challenge that the open source security community faces is implementing Sigma rules into our existing open source security tools that we're leveraging, such as Wazoo or Graylog. I've even tried to implement it within Copilot. To be honest, haven't really had much luck. There's been some other GitHub repositories trying to implement Python to convert Sigma rules into Wazoo rules, and you can get a little bit of the way there, but it's not near as robust as we would like for it to be. And unfortunately, while Wazoo's rule syntax is really flexible and really robust in what you can do with it, there are some limitations just due to the complexity of Sigma rules that doesn't allow that one-to-one translation to occur. But thankfully, Velociraptor has attempted to solve that challenge via implementing Sigma detection directly into Velociraptor. So this will be a great way for us to add that Sigma monitoring and alerting directly to our existing SIEM solution. And the team at Velociraptor has put together a great implementation of this. And so that is what we're going to cover within this video. So within this video, we're not only going to set up Sigma analysis within Velociraptor, but we're also going to configure Velociraptor to run the Sigma analysis on set interval times occurring on the agent, so scans occurring on the agent, and then we're going to send detections into Copilot, so that we will send it into Copilot, specifically the incident management alert feature platform directly within Copilot, because we don't only want to just detect on these events on Sigma matches, but we also want to forward those to our incident management tool, and here we're leveraging Copilot to do so. So there'll be some pieces here that will go throughout this video, but first let's go ahead and set up Sigma within Velociraptor. So Velociraptor has this Sigma webpage, dedicated just to Sigma, which I'll link in the description below. But what we're going to go ahead and do, and you can also read more up on how they're implementing Sigma within within Velociraptor, some of the challenges that they identify and face, and specifically how it is implemented here within Velociraptor. And one great advantage that we have now leveraging Velociraptor is that queries are run directly on the endpoint and only matching events are forwarded into our SIEM stack. So meaning that we're not have to ingest a ton of just garbage data and then hoping to run Sigma query matches on top of that. We're going to be receiving the events that match a Sigma detection, which will help with our log volume that we're ingesting in. So it's a great way. So I'm really glad that they took this approach. But let's go ahead and first configure this. And here we see the rules that they are importing. So they're importing rules from the Hayabusa project and from Sigma HQ, and they link to those if you want to read up more on those. Rules are automatically compiled using a configuration file, which you can see that here, which we'll set up here in a sec. And then we can also download just an artifact pack here, which is just a zip file of the various configuration files that they include within their GitHub and stuff. So it's an easier way for us to incorporate this in. Now, if you have just installed Velociraptor with the latest version, I think these are built into Velociraptor now, but if they're not, what we can do is, since we're on our Velociraptor server here, I'll go ahead and go into View Artifacts, and I'll go ahead and select this Upload Artifact Pack. And if I select that, you see that we can select a zip file with YAML definition. We'll upload that zip file that we just downloaded, click to upload, and now this will upload into our Velociraptor server here. All right, and then once that has been uploaded, we should have a few artifacts. So if I select all artifacts here, I should have if I just start typing in Sigma, I should have this server import curated Sigma. So this will import our Sigma alerts, because right now we just have Velociraptor. We just have the artifact pack. So step one that we need to do is actually import our Sigma rules, which we'll go ahead and do so now. So if I go into server artifacts, and let's go ahead and select this new collection. And here I'm just going to type in Sigma. Geez, I'm having trouble typing today. And select the server import curated Sigma. and go ahead and select curate configure parameters here. And then we can select what packages we want to install. I'm going to go ahead and select the Hayabusa rule set and then the Hayabusa live detection as well. And then this would be for Linux. They leverage a chop chop go rule set, which I'm not going to use in this video, but I'll just go ahead and download. Why not? And then I'll go ahead and select launch, and then we can track this guy. And this is going to go ahead and fetch the latest rules and download those into our Velociraptor server. So our Velociraptor server now has the rules. All right, so now with the rules, let's actually go ahead and just run a standalone scan on our endpoint. Oh, geez. Let's just go ahead and run a standalone scan on our endpoint. So on my Windows machine here, if I just go ahead and select collected, I'll go ahead and select new collection. And here I will type in Windows Hayabusa rules. Go ahead and select that. I can select my configure parameters. And here we're basically telling, so here Velociraptor is getting the directory, we're setting the directory of where our Windows event logs exist. So all of our application security, if I have Sysmon, PowerShell, Defender, all of those events are logging into this location. So we shouldn't need to modify that unless you've modified that on your end. But if you have, you can control setting that directory there. We can select our rule levels that we want to run it on. So here and these are our Sigma rule levels that we want to evaluate against, which is really nice that they give us this ability. So we can say only criticals. I'm going to go ahead and say all just for this example real quick so that we get data in. And then we can select the rule status, whether it's stable, and experimental. I'm going to go ahead and run stable and experimental. And then we also have the ability to add rule exclusions, which we'll look at here in a sec. And then you can also set dates that you want the scan to run against. I'll just leave this to default for now and go ahead and select launch. And now what Velociraptor is going to do is run all of our Sigma rule, right, against our endpoint. And here we can get some more details as to, all right, it looks like it's finding our Windows event logs. So that's great. It's consuming messages from there, and then see if we got any results back. And sure enough, we are starting to get some Sigma matches back where we get the Sigma rule title here, the Sigma rule level. We get some details around the event. So we've now verified that the imported Sigma rules that we are leveraging are working in a standalone scan. That's great. So what happens if we let me run like a PowerShell attack simulator, which I have found this GitHub. Here, I'll link to this in the description below. I think I've used this a few times, but I'll link to it in the description below. Jump back onto, so here's my Windows host that is being monitored by via Velociraptor. I'll go ahead and open PowerShell here, and I'll just paste in that command that we just copied. So if I go ahead and paste that in, let's see what we get. And Defender may actually block it, and it looks like it has. So Defender has blocked it. So let me go ahead and disable that. So go ahead and select Manage Settings, and then just turn this real-time protection stuff off. And let's try running it again. And it looks like it's starting to execute. It didn't, cannot find service. Oh yeah, that's fine. And now it looks like it is starting to execute for us on the back end here. So all right, cool. So I expect if we let this complete and run a scan again, that we should, and I'll just do critical and high level alerts so we don't get a lot of extra events, because you can see we already pulled in 538 pages. So that's a lot of events that a lot of these. So we see some low level Sigma rule matches that I may not, if I'm already leveraging Wazoo to monitor my endpoints as well, I probably don't care about low and medium level Sigma rules that I want to evaluate against. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just run another Hayabusa scan again. And let's just do our parameters for, I'm just going to say rule level critical and high, and I'm going to do stable and experimental. Go ahead and launch this, and let's see what results we get back. Now, I can always tail this log file here. This will dynamically populate, which is nice. to see make sure that events are being scanned, or to make sure that the scan is running as expected. You see Windows Defender real-time protection being disabled, right? So that's cool. We just saw me actually disable Defender. So the Sigma rule is picking up on that. We're seeing Defender detected a threat. If we go to the next page, we see this process access, which is actually our Wazoo agent. Funny enough. So actually too, we can also exclude particular Sigma rules. So even though it's a level of high, right, which we just defined we wanted to scan for, we can actually run another scan. So if I configure another scan here, I can add this rule exclusion here. So, and this is just a match on any regex value, which is really, really powerful. So that I can paste my rule in here, and actually I'll need to escape brackets here, and I'll just say stock fortress added, I'll say noisy, select launch, and now on this next scan there will be no process analysis, or there will be no process access Sigma rule alerts. And sure enough, if we look at our results here we don't see that process access alert. So pretty cool. So this is all good and all, but we're having to manually run this, right? And as we want to monitor an environment, we don't want to have to always manually run our event collections, right? So what we can do is implement this to automatically run using a client monitoring. So what we're going to now do is configure Velo to automate the Sigma analysis here on our endpoint so that we don't have to manually run these scans. So if I go into my client events here and I select update client monitoring table, we'll see here that we can select based on a label. So if you have your Velociraptor agents categorized by a label, you could do so there. Like if only Windows, only Linux. Here I'm just gonna select all, and I'm going to go into select artifacts. And if I select artifacts and I start typing in monitoring here, we should get this Windows Hayabusa monitoring. So let's go ahead and select this guy. If we go into configure parameters here we have our Windows Hayabusa monitoring. So if we can select this guy, and we see the same configuration that we were just setting when we were running the standalone scan. So here, I'm just going to say critical and high, rule status. I'll say stable and experimental. I'll go ahead and, do I still have that in my buffer? Cool, I do. I'll go ahead and paste in that exclusion rule that we wanted to add. And you can add to this as it fits for your environment. All environments are going to be different. What's important is that we have the flexibility to add our own in. Here's also another parameter I want to highlight here, is that this frequency. So this frequency is how often do we want to run this scan. So as you can see, they say a lower number means more real-time detection, but potentially higher CPU utilization on the endpoint, right? So that's something that we want to consider, is that the Velociraptor service that's running on our monitored endpoints, the more frequent we run this, it's going to have to consume system resources to do this analysis. So during my testing, I haven't really seen a negative impact at a minute, even doing something as crazy as every 5 seconds running it. But you can have the freedom to tweak this as you need to. And what's cool is Velociraptor is going to scan within that interval. So they're checking, all right, let's say if I had this to every 5 minutes, right? If I had this at like a 300-second value here, then Velociraptor is smart enough to only scan within that 5-minute window there, which is a really nice feature that they're just taking care of under the hood. So here, I'll just leave this at 60, so it'll run every 60 seconds, and I'll go ahead and launch this. So now what's going to happen is Velociraptor is going to run, and then if I like refresh here, we should see it come into our artifact here. I have noticed that you do have to refresh a few times, or maybe click to another page and then come back to it. And now we see this Windows Hayabusa monitoring. So if we select that, we can now see our log table. And if I select my logs here, we can see just logs of this client monitoring event, right, starting to happen. So we can see it loaded 236 Sigma rules, 11 log sources, and it's doing these 26 field mappings. We can see also what Windows event files, it was able to be able to analyze and successfully register a watcher again. So here we can see Windows PowerShell, Windows Firewall. I'm sure Sysmon is in here somewhere. Here we go, Sysmon. And if there are ones that don't exist, we can see that it says unable to open file. To be honest, it's kind of clunky, I think, in my opinion. I don't think it's really the easiest to work with, but it gets the job done. All right, so with our monitoring going, that's great and all, but now how do we get our events to Copilot, right? So now we've configured Velociraptor to automate the Sigma analysis, but now let's send detections to Copilot. Right, so what I'm gonna go ahead and do is first update Copilot, if you haven't already, to the latest build, which I think I released yesterday. And then also you will need to make sure you update your .env file with this new Velociraptor API header. You can either leave this to default or create your own header. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy that and then jump on my Copilot box and update my... All right, so with that updated, I'll go ahead and bring back up Copilot and get that up and running again. And let's go into Velociraptor. Let's go back into our server artifacts. And what we're gonna go ahead and do is, let's go ahead and go into our server, view artifacts here, third time's a charm, and go ahead and select add an artifact. And then on our Medium page, which will be included in the description below here, what I'm gonna do is just copy this value that I have here. So this is an artifact that we've created for you guys to go along with Copilot that you can just paste in here and is going to make that post request to send the Sigma detection into Copilot so that we get our alerting there. So what I can go ahead and do is select save. So now that I have that artifact, I'm gonna go ahead and select server event, and I'm going to update our server monitoring table. And here, I'm going to type in our Copilot events upload, select this guy, and go to my configuration parameters. And now here we need to modify to point to our Copilot server, right? So this would be either a domain name, either the host name specifically, or direct IP address, however you're resolving the Copilot server within your environment. So I'm going to go ahead and paste my value in there so that Velociraptor is sending the data to the correct host. And here, if I've modified the .env file, right, where we set our Velociraptor API header, if I want to change that to a different value, I can do that here. This Wazoo index pattern, you can most likely leave to just Wazoo if you've been following along, but if you do change that index pattern name, then you can modify that there. And then for client artifacts to watch, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is just delete these guys and type in, I can start to type in monitoring, and here we have our Windows Hayabusa monitoring. So I'll select that guy, I won't include that one either. Disable SSO, I'm just going over HTTP, so this doesn't matter. So now with selecting launch here, and then similarly, I will see this, if I refresh the page here, I can select Copilot events upload. Again, I can select logs here, and we can see that it is monitoring for the Windows Hayabusa. So we verified that any Sigma detections, right, from our automated monitoring that we just configured will be sent to Copilot. So now let's go ahead and test that out. So let me run that Sysmon simulator again, or let me run that little PowerShell attack simulator again, which will trigger some alerts for us. And so we should get some critical and high Sigma rules detecting on this. And then we should be able to see this whole process through so that it sends to Copilot and that we are getting our alert created within Copilot. So I'll let that run for a sec. Again, one thing I'll highlight that some of you guys may run into, you'll notice here, right, these are grayed out. So you may be thinking, why can't I get there? So to do that, you can just select an agent. And once you select an endpoint, and once you have an endpoint select, those will populate again. So that admittingly took me a little longer to figure out than I would like to admit. But so if you guys run into that same thing, you can, that's why. All right, and now that's probably, so just ran through, cool, and we do see our events here. So this is under the live monitoring, right? So under also the live monitoring, I can select this log data, and we also see events that are being hit. So since some detections were created or were spotted, if we go into our server server events here and select Copilot, we should also see, great. So we do see that Velociraptor sent out to Copilot and we got some alerts created. Here we have alert ID 10. So now if we go into Copilot and if I go into my incident management alerts here, great. We do start to see now our Velociraptor and our Sigma alerts starting to come in. And then we're auto tagging with some stuff. I can go into this guy. Again, very similarly to how we're creating alerts for Wazoo, for example, as well, right? None of that process has changed. You'll notice here, if there is an index that's not applicable, that means, so as a part of this process, when Velociraptor sends a Sigma alert to Copilot, we try to find that particular event, like the Wazoo related event, within the Wazoo indexer. Sometimes it can't find it because maybe Wazoo wasn't configured to log it, right? Whether there's a role exclusion or the agent.conf doesn't have it. So if you do see not applicable there, that is what that means. But we do attempt to try to find it. If it doesn't, then we set this not applicable here. We can also go into the comments and we can see that an auto comment has also been made on the Sigma rule detection as well, or the Sigma rule title as well, right? So here we get an automated comment that's set on that. Let's see if one of these has a index. So here in this one, for example, we do have an index, which means we can attempt to create that alert timeline as well. So you'll see that if that index is fetched, then we have the ability to get this alert timeline that we're able to put together. Anything with the tag Sigma alert, we can validate that it was created by our Velociraptor Sigma integration here. So really excited about this new feature. This is an awesome implementation by the Velociraptor team. So huge shout out to them. I think in actually their latest release, there looks to be some ability to create your own Sigma rules via leveraging this Velociraptor notebook thing that they have. I haven't looked into that, but if any of you guys have, feel free to drop some comments in the below. I might also take a look at exploring that in the future. So really excited that we now have this integration into the SIEM stack and also integrated with our alert management and case management platform. And really excited to bring this functionality to you guys. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I appreciate your time and I will see you in the next one.